Yeah, that'll be funny. But let's chat some more after the show. All right, excellent. What a week it's been, guys. We are deep into magazine deadline here at NAG, and we cannot wait to show it to you when we have it in store. The next issue of NAG magazine will be out at the end of November, and it's crammed full of the best game to play and the hardware to game it on. And we've got some really cool articles for you to read. But more on that in the next show. In this episode, I want to show you a really cool piece of technology that I've been using. It's called Stellar Data Recovery Pro, and it will help you recover deleted data from your drives. You can even use it to recover data from a crashed or unbootable system. Then we look at the hottest game around at the moment, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. The game launched last week, and it's available on Game Pass for subscribers, so you can play it virtually for free. I even signed up again myself to play this game, and let me tell you, it was totally worth it. And finally, I catch up with RGB Gaming and Eduvos to talk about the business of gaming in schools and school esports, which is growing rapidly in South Africa. As always, remember to keep an eye out for the badger. I've been hiding him in random episodes to see if you can spot him somewhere in the edit. And drop a comment if you do. Just don't give away the timestamp. Just let us know you found him. So, how good is your video game knowledge? Do you think you know your stuff? Then see if you can answer the one question in this week's Quest for Knowledge. Steam reports that the Call of Duty franchise peaked with an all-time high player count recently. How many gamers played Call of Duty on Steam on the launch weekend of Call of Duty 6? If you have ever lost sensitive data or photographs, you'll know the pain of what you go through when that happens. But I've recently found an application that helps me recover data. Stellar Data Recovery Professional is an application that I found quite helpful in recovering deleted clips from my camera's SD cards recently. The software is available on Mac, Android, and iOS, and there are various license types to choose from depending on your usage needs. The newly released version sports a couple of new features over the previous version. For one thing, Stellar Data Recovery now supports over 270 file formats. Other features include the ability to recover data from missing partitions. That's very handy. The software interface is pretty straightforward, and if you've used a File Explorer application, you'll feel right at home. The application's main screen shows you all the drives connected to your computer when you first boot it up. This includes lost or hidden partitions, and it even shows you common places like your desktop and documents folder. From here, you can also recover files. I also like that you can select only the file types that you wish to recover to make the whole process easier. Finding deleted files is pretty straightforward, but depending on the speed of your drive, it can take quite a while. Scanning my external 240GB SSD took around 20 minutes. The process of recovering your data with Stellar Data Recovery Professional is pretty straightforward. Once you find your files within the application interface, it is very easy to extract those to any drive of your choosing. For me, this application came in incredibly handy when I lost some files off an SD card and I managed to recover them. So kudos to Stellar Data Recovery. If you want to find out more, check out our review on nag.co.za and check out the website if you want to sign up for it now. Okay, so don't tell my team, but I've been spending way too much time in Call of Duty Black Ops 6 since it launched last week. I've not really played much Call of Duty in years, but jumping into the odd Warzone game in recent months made me really hungry for this game that recently launched. Arguably the biggest news around the launch of this game is that it's available on Microsoft's Game Pass subscription. Yep, that means you don't have to fork out the $1,500 to get this game at retail. This is a massive boom for Microsoft's gaming streaming service, and the company has already reported massive uptick in subscriber numbers. I mean, I was certainly one of them. The latest entry in the Call of Duty franchise brings with it a number of new features as well, including a few fan-favorite features from previous games. Another thing that makes this game stand out is that it has the longest development cycle of any Call of Duty game, at around 4 years in total. And in my opinion, this has totally paid off in the gameplay department. As with older Black Ops games, Black Ops 6 includes a single-player campaign, a multiplayer component, and the cooperative round-based zombies mode. I've been spending most of my time in the multiplayer mode, but the single-player campaign is also a lot of fun, and I'm eager to get back to the story. What I love about the gameplay in Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is that it feels incredibly fluid, and all 3 game modes feel fun and action-packed. One of the most significant features in this game's release is the Omni movement, which allows players to sprint, dive, and slide in any direction with relative ease. The gunsmith aspect of this game is also strong, and you have deep customization of your favorite weapons available to you. It's been about a week, and I'm still having loads of fun playing Call of Duty Black Ops 6. I'll have a lot more to say about this game, so check it out in the next issue of NAG magazine out in December, and you can pick it up at Rage. I recently had a chat with RGB Gaming and Eduvos about esports in schools. It's an incredibly important part of today's school curriculum, and we are seeing schools embracing gaming and even robotics. RGB Gaming and Eduvos has played a pivotal role in coaching and uplifting esports in education. It's more than just gaming, it's about understanding the technologies behind it, all in a bid to inspire young people to do great things. To kick off the chat, I asked Yaku from RGB Gaming to tell us a little bit more about what they do.
Sure, Richard. So RGB Gaming is actually part of a group of edtech companies. Let's call it our mothership company is a company called Scatco, and we've been around the education environment for probably the last 25 years or so. But obviously recently, and when I say recently, the last couple of years, it became apparent that, within the education industry, gamification and also esports is going to be driving a lot of the skills involved or the skills required for future readiness for students. Hence the birth of RGB Gaming, and that's what we have been focusing on the last couple of years, is really gamification and, again, specifically esports, within the education environment. And of course that is across the education environment, primary schools, high schools, as well as universities. And I think that, from that perspective, when we started, it was all about, just gaming. But ever since, it's really, been about more than that, right? And starting to talk about the ecosystem and the involvement of, the ecosystem within the industry and what that actually means for students.
So it sounds like there's a lot more than just esports, and you guys are entrenching yourself a little bit deeper into the business of gaming. How do you see the outlook, 6 months to 12 to about 2 years? I mean, how is the industry looking for you? Clearly we are nurturing the right talents here.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, at the moment, I guess nurturing is the right word, because the reality is that, gaming and esports as such is really in its infancy at this stage, compared to elsewhere in the world. But that's also, part and parcel the responsibility that we realize, is that we also have a responsibility to provide South African students with similar or the same opportunities to what students elsewhere in the world is getting. And what you're saying is rightfully so. It's not just about gaming and esports and gamification of content and, learning through that way, but it is also talking to students about the ecosystem, the growth, the career opportunities, and what that actually looks like. Specifically with elements, for example, like game development, we're quite involved or quite heavily involved in as well. And again, Dr. Rian will talk about this, I'm sure, later on, but specifically around things like, for example, game development with students and what potential future opportunities there are available for them in that space.
Now, I mean, one thing that I'll definitely ask Dr. Rian Sternberg as well is how is the current outlook in South Africa for gaming, gamers, esports? People want to take gaming in a more professional industry. We hear of studios shutting down all the time. Clearly, it's the same as any other industry that grows very fast, but also it can be volatile at times. How do you see this landscape, and how do you educate students, to kind of get the best out of it?
Look, I think part of this is, also nurturing the business element of it, right? So a lot of the skills within the gaming industry, specifically, for example, those around game development, are also entrepreneurial skills, right? So they are offering students the ability to have a skill that they are not necessarily reliant on somebody to tap, but that they can use themselves, right? So that's a very positive thing there. The other thing as well is that, as you grow the industry, I mean, I understand what you're saying from a global perspective. There are studios, shutting down and this and that. But I think on a local level, we are still at the point where we are nurturing the market for investment. And as more and more students show interest, as more and more opportunities become available, so does the investment into that market, right? So I do think that for not only for South Africa, but also for the African market, it is still let's call it an opportunity on the horizon compared to other places in the world.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. Now, Dr. Rian Sternberg, before I drop that question on you, please introduce yourself and tell us what is Eduvos about, and how do you guys play a role within the business of gaming in South Africa?
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Yaku. So Eduvos is a private higher education institution, and we've been around for a while. And we really believe in shaping the potential of students, student by student. And we've taken on the commitment to prepare students for the future by fostering innovation and a modern approach to education. When we started looking towards that future, we realized that we looked at industries that were underrepresented in South Africa and Africa broadly, and the esports and gaming industries are massive industries globally that don't really have a local presence. Globally, the industry, you may not know, is worth about 30 billion rand annually for esports specifically. And it's not just about entertainment. It's a very serious platform as well for skill development. In Africa, the esports market is expected to grow by over 15% annually, with more players and brand recognizing its potential. And when we then started looking at what we do, we made a decision to integrate esports into our offering. And because we believe it develops critical skills such as teamwork, strategic thinking, technological proficiency, all of which are essential for the future workforce. We also find that parents are quite frustrated with kids that tell them that gaming is a career, is a life, but there is nothing for them to turn those skills into reality. So we actually offer qualifications in esports and gaming and game development. And together with RGB, we have established one of the largest esports leagues in Africa, and which I think is very critical. And it's fascinating to see how that's translating every day into people building up skills and knowledge and social interactions while also working on a career that expands even further than gaming and esports. We are one of South Africa's largest education institutions. We have 16,000 students. And esports increasingly plays an important role in education, particularly in connecting students with technology-driven careers. At Eduvos, we're one of the largest graduators of IT skills. We've got 5,800 students studying IT right now with us in areas as diverse as cybersecurity, robotics, machine learning, and systems development, etc. And we find that when we put esports on the table, it became a very transdisciplinary type of area. It wasn't only the IT kids that rocked up; it was the scientists, it was the artists, it was the people that was interested in telling the stories of Africa. So together with RGB, we do things like game jams and other types of things where we develop actual bona fide games, and been fascinating to see how people are utilizing gaming as a technology to express themselves.
Now, you mentioned it earlier. Obviously, parents is a huge role, and they often get the hard end of this, where kids just want to play games and they, kids want to have fun. But there's also the reality of, the business and potentially the esports angle. As they get older, it's as a part of the curriculum. And we've spoken to some other schools as well, where gaming is a part of the education. It definitely seems to be uplifting the students in a way that they are more interested and curious about it, because they take something that they inherently see as fun, but also derive the educational aspect from it, or, as they partake in it. I'm sure that the conversation with parents is still a difficult one when you talk about gaming in education. How do you see this as changing?
Well, fascinating for me, the reception from both students and parents have been massively positive. I think globally the industry is booming. There's an audience in esports estimated at about 530 million people. And while there aren't that many players, I guess most of it's the parents watching. And we definitely find that when we run these events on campus. And that audience is also growing. And in South Africa and across the continent, esports is definitely on the rise. There's opportunities for people not only to go into competitive gaming, but into game development, data analysis, and these skills then move into marketing, event management, media production, coding, logic, etc. So there's many careers that stem from esports, extending beyond the gaming industry into fields like graphic design, software engineering, digital marketing, and these industries are growing rapidly in the global economy and also in the South African skills economy. Esports have really helped many students find a new area of interest or even a potential career path, whereas previously they were busy playing Fortnite or, I don't know, all the other things out there. And for example, students interested in game development are seeing esports, which is smaller than the total gaming industry, as a practical entry point into the gaming industry. And I don't know if you know, but the gaming industry itself is estimated to be about 4 trillion rand every year. And it's also growing at 9% annually. So I think parents are starting to recognize there is something here. Streaming is big. There is ways to make money out of this. But what we believe is the essential part of what we do is we are teaching the skills around gaming as well, so that students can leverage those skills from esports in fields such as IT management, project management, even business strategy. And parents are beginning to understand that esports is that gateway to kind of transform the hobby as a bridge to real world careers, and move into things that might be a little bit more commercial and active into the future of those people that were previously sitting on the couch.
Good point. I mean, one thing that I'm always curious about is what does it look like in education when we're talking about esports and game development? Of course, we can understand game development, programming, design. You can kind of understand what that looks like in education. But broadly speaking, when we talk about gaming and esports in education, what does it look like to the students? What do they get taught, and what do they get exposed to in this curriculum?
Typically, they get exposed to basic programming, and then moving into more advanced programming. Then it goes into graphics, the elements of gameplay and design. How does that all come together? And then you start talking about the other aspects of that gaming process. Now, Yaku is a lot more of a fundi on this. But there are things like, how do you do multiplayer, single shot games? What's the business models behind those? How do you manage this whole process of bringing it together? And there's a whole kind of business side to the equation that really has to be addressed. Multi-languages, all the complicated bits and skins. How do you put out a freemium game? All of that stuff is things that we work with people, and then while the esports leagues are places where we do then test these things, we also understand the social dimensions of it. There are all the careers in terms of streaming and blogging and all of those types of things that we also address. But intriguingly, we find that the game education draws in the people with finance skills, law skills, marketing skills. So intriguingly as well, the biomedical scientists, because they need to understand how this body works and just things like that. So very intriguing how that happens. And so indirectly, then you're building this leadership and project coordination and digital literacy and ability to create things as a collective. So we really see that as a kind of very transdisciplinary field. And I think what's also, for me, the really big and inspiring part is that a lot more of the characters are local, recognizable, got the spirit of Africa in it, etc. And people feel that they are in the game. And I think that's a very essential part of sociologically educating ourselves to be comfortable with ourselves as a continent.
Just to add, I think, something that Dr. Rian touched on that I think is actually, quite important, in the context of what we're talking about as well, is that, besides all the, let's call it the really hard skills, the coding and, graphic design and level design and game design, but, those are really hard, call it provable skills if you want. And besides how that integrates into the business element to understand, whether this is an entrepreneurial function, if I do want to do something commercial, how do I get it out there? What are the types of commercial models that are available for different kinds of, either studios or independents or retro game creators or whatever may be the case. I think besides all of that, a critical part of this is, of course, the social and let's call it community type of activities that are going on, right? And the main reason for that is that, game development, gaming, esports, gamification of learning is definitely not, for everyone, right? I mean, there's a collective community, there's a collective group of people that they find this as home, right? And we see this especially with a lot of students, it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're at primary school, high school, or at a university. There's a group of students that feel they belong in this environment. And those are the students that, ultimately are going to be the entrepreneurs, the business owners, the people that really drive the industry, from that perspective, because of the let's call it their sense of belonging, right? Like anything else, if you look at other careers, you get people that are a born lawyer and, that is what they become, and they become exceptionally good at it. Born scientists. And, from that perspective, we believe that there are people that are born for the gaming industry, right? And it's about tapping that skill, also providing them with additional skills, guidance to really navigate this ecosystem.
Absolutely love what you said there, Jaco. It's really about taking a kid's passion and understanding that and identifying that, and then giving them the tools to take it further, because there is a broad industry that anyone could get into that's not just gaming as esports, but gaming as development, design, marketing, PR. There's all these things that's the same in all other industries, but obviously we are talking about the biggest growing industry in the world right now. And it's absolutely exciting. Now, what can we expect from this combination between Eduvos and RGB Gaming going forward? Is there anything exciting that we can look forward to, or any insights that you want to share in closing?
I mean, in closing from my side, are we doing anything exciting? My answer to that would be all the time.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Absolutely. I'll also add to that, and you may know that esports was recognized recently for the Olympic Games. And we reckon, because we've got the largest league in Africa, we should be definitely aspiring to get our team in there. So that for us is a medium-term objective. We also, you may not know, but all of our gaming qualifications is now available on all 12 of our campuses. So you can literally study gaming anywhere in South Africa, which I think is also a massive first. And we are looking at expanding that and really growing that to full bachelor's degrees that you can do in this. So there's a lot of work that's gone into that, and we're working with the accreditation authorities to get us to that point. So we really want to legitimize this and really make sure that this is a growing industry that's got the skills to really position us for Africa's growth. In 2050, 30% of all people will be living in Africa, and they will be gaming. And I believe it will be Eduvos students that will be supplying them those games.
Fantastic. Well, I certainly look forward to having deeper conversation around that. But it's certainly very exciting news coming from this duo of RGB Gaming and Eduvos, and I think it's showing us what is possible if we focus the kids' attention in the right ways and get them excited about the business of gaming rather than just sweating it out in front of the computer screen for hours at a time. Thank you so much for your time. We'll put in all the links for Eduvos and RGB Gaming below, and if anybody wants to read more, please reach out to these gentlemen. They are clearly ahead of their game, and I'm very excited about what you guys have bring to the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Robert.
And that's it for episode 25 of The NAG Show. Until the next episode, remember to check out our channels on YouTube, Facebook, X, Ayoba, and Instagram. Remember to head out to the NAG shop too to grab your copy of the latest NAG magazine. And we also just launched our merch line. There's t-shirts and brand new mousepads available. So head over to shop.nag.co.za now to check it out. And if you want to reach out to me, you can email me at reichardt@nag.co.za. Until the next show, NAG out.